Hey guys, I'm Dov, and today I'm back with more Total War Warhammer 2 multiplayer. We're here with a fun, themed 2v2. It is, maybe not necessarily loreful, but certainly themed around beasts. So the idea here is I've got the High Beastmaster, and Falcon here in charge of the Lizardmen has brought the Dread Saurian. I've also got the Chill of Sontar here. We've got Siren of Red Ruin, Ancient Salamander, a couple Chameleon Skinks, plenty of Lizardmen infantry, Saurus of course, with the cohort of Sotek. I've got some supporting elements here, Dread Spears, a couple of Dark Riders, K-Knight Assassin, to apply some debuffs, and also to apply debuffs and buffs, we've got a Shadow Sorceress, a couple of new OP Chariots, and Dark Riders with Repeater Crossbows. For the Warriors of Chaos, which is going to be Arrow Krastik here, good friend. Warriors, yeah, Chaos Knights here, we've got Hounds, plenty of Horse Masters, just a very mobile build, all mobile units in fact, besides these Weird Spawn. We've also got Sarthrel, a couple Exalted Heroes in the air, more Knights, more Horsemen, and such. Greenskins taking more of the meat here, with the infantry line, lots of Black Orcs, he's got a Spider, Azag up in the air, some Archers, Spider Riders as well, so yeah, straight off the bat, we're going to be getting things going. Azag comes in, starts to chase around these Scourge Runners a little bit here. And I'm going to try and pull them back and secure them. I'm not going to do a great job of microing them throughout the course of the battle, but yeah, we're going to try and screen them through those spears there, see if we can't beat these Spider Riders and so on. Meanwhile, over here, Chaos Knights getting screened out a little bit. The Siren of Red Ruin firing in. I think we're going to get, yep, a breath attack from the Chill as well. Just absolutely freezing these Chaos Knights as they run away, applying that nice Frostbite debuff as well. And I see Big Bird kind of hanging out over here. It looks like a little bit isolated from the rest of the troops. I mean, the Spider is pushing forward over on this side. The Orc Infantry is slogging it out currently with the Saurus and such. Looks like a map-wide Waaagh going to be popped. And in 2v2s, Waaagh is very strong because, of course, it does affect your ally as well. Speaking of affecting allies, I'm trying to decide right now whether I should use my stuff on the Saurian or try and go after Sarthrel. I end up using the Assassin Trophy and the Tormentor Sword on Sarthrel to pin him down, and then the Whiplash also comes in on the Chill of Sontar. We're going to stack that with the new and improved Occam's Mind Razor. So now granted, in hindsight, this is probably a little bit of a mistake. I'm getting a huge damage spike, but Big Bird does have magic resistance. That being said, the two Exalted Heroes dive in, and let's just check in. Yeah, 792 weapon strength, basically just about doubling the weapon strength of the Chill of Sontar, and yeah, or more or less doubling. Yeah, in fact, 50% plus 50%, right? And that is going to be a ton of damage. Basically, this Dread Saurian here is a little bit weaker than the Chill of Sontar currently with those effects active. Granted, the Whiplash does wear off relatively quickly, but these two Manscore heroes jump down to try and save Sarthrel, and they are just going to take a pounding from this monster mash here. Marauder Horsemasters charge in. You can see the Medusas kind of hanging around in the periphery. That being said, this frontline engagement's not going terribly well for the Lizardmen infantry. They're doing a decent job, but starting to get cut through over on the flank here. My Dark Riders did not micro them effectively at all. They're getting cleaned up, and the Chariots as well, just not microing them great. I should be shooting it back here, shooting at this Spider at the moment, but so it is. Ancient Salamander looks like it's used up most of its ammo. I don't know exactly what it's been shooting at, but these Chaos Knights getting into the back line is pretty bad. You see, we did beat up those Exalted Heroes pretty significantly, but at the same time, I burned some pretty long cooldowns. And so now as Falcon moves the Dread Saurian over to this main engagement here, it's not going to have any buffs available, and the Anti-Large Spider is coming in here, potentially dangerous. I mean, you would think, though, that the Dread Saurian, and certainly in my experience, it should be able to beat the Arachnarok Spider. You can see here we're going to maybe throw a shot. Nope, looks like the Siren instead is going to shoot at some of these units up in the air. Gets a good hit on Azag, or not up in the air rather, currently on the ground, but yeah, I wanted to highlight this right here. So this game involves a lot of RNG, right? And one of the biggest ones is the attack to hit roll. And the way that that works is the melee attack versus the melee defense, the attack of the attacker versus the defense of the defender. It's 35% plus for each point over attack versus defense. It goes up a percentage point, or, you know, under, down. to a minimum of 8 and a max of 90% hit chance. So the Saurian actually has a really good chance to hit here, coming in at about a 50%, but it just whiffs on multiple attack animations in a row. And what I mean by that is the attack roll fails in terms of the attack versus defense. Gets very lucky, and unfortunately that whole time he is also taking fire as well from the rusty arrows, sundering his armor, then the javelins throwing in and doing a lot of extra missile damage there. He comes back, I do throw the lash, and he's got a regrowth as well, and just absolutely kills that exalted hero there brutally. But we should be able to get him back in. That lash was probably a bit of overkill there, but you can see Azag taking the shots from the Siren of the Red Ruin. A very nice Searing Doom, though. Consistent Searing Doom from Big Bird, and you can see that massive Daka line from the Orcs. Pretty much untouched, still completely healthy, as the mobility game was definitely won out by the Warriors of Chaos here. That being said, Exalted Hero comes to try and kill the K-Knight Assassin. He's actually going to beat him down pretty hard. And we're able to kind of secure a bit of a pocket here. The supporting elements are getting really low, though. There's basically no infantry left, which is a little bit of a problem. Definitely went with some pretty heavy builds in terms of monsters, but a nice banishment there from the Life Slon, who is, of course, leading the Lizardmen forces. And yeah, we'll see. Still pretty close on the balance of power, if not a little bit ahead here. Nice breath attack on those Marauder Horsemasters. Just trying to, do whatever counter ranged I can. Nice Searing Doom here, and the interesting thing about these bombardment spells is against the really big monsters, obviously the Dread Saurian being the biggest, but against monsters that have a really wide top-down footprint, if you can get all of the missiles to actually connect on the monster, it will do a pretty significant amount of damage, those sort of bombardment-type spells, right? So that Searing Doom is a pretty good one. The Piercing Bolts of Burning in particular, obviously, because it does fire damage, and it also does almost purely AP damage, too, is very good to use on big footprint monsters that are slow, like Hell Pit's a good target, Dread Saurian, obviously. But yeah, the Hazag comes down here to try and take out the Life Slon. Thankfully, the Siren is there to see him off, but unfortunately, that Saurian just gets pounded on, taking hits from the Weird Spawn. And again, that armor sundering from the Weird Spawn gonna help these Orc Arrow Boys and those Marauder Horsemasters. So a very nice synergistic build as well from Gojira and Arrow here. Gonna start to pull this back as the Saurian gets routed off. Did get a couple of ranks there from some good damage in, so probably paid for itself, but still. In this late game here, this Hydra unsupported, propping up the balance of power, but against all of this missile fire, there's not much ammo left, but there is enough, especially on these Orc Arrow Boys right here, have quite a bit. And yeah, more mismicroed units on my part. These Dread Spears coming back, tangling up with Chaos Knights, which is actually fine with me. But yeah, let's watch this Piercing Bolts and watch the damage on the Chill of Sontar. You can see the missiles that do connect actually do deal a pretty good amount of damage. So if you can get all of the missiles to connect on a single monster, it's actually probably worth using that on a single entity. But yeah, you wouldn't want to use it on a small footprint single entity, like, for example, this Medusa, or even the Ancient Salamander, or those that have pretty wild attack animations that are likely to move out of the area of effect, which is, to be honest, a lot of monsters. But yeah, Spider can be a decent one as well, because again, relatively large footprint. Its attack animations do move around a little bit, but it tends to sort of go back to its previous position, after those attack animations. But anyway, K-Knight Assassin getting charged out here. Will come in close. Some epic 2v2 cinematic shots as he just gets absolutely killed. You can see Hydra's getting a healing proc, which is okay. And the Chaos Knights charging in here. Azag cackling above in the air. Looks like he might charge down here, but yeah, unfortunately the Blood Rat gets cornered by Big Bird, and Big Bird doesn't do the most armor piercing, but he has good overall weapon damage, and of course the Siren of the Red Ruin, not a lot of armor on there, so he's actually a pretty strong combatant. Most people forget 60 melee attack is pretty good, 440 total weapon strength. Big Bird is not one to mess with, and is actually one of my favorite legendary lords personally. But yeah, very well played to Falcon and Gojira, able to kind of swing that one back and make a nice comeback there with the Daka line. Great synergy, honestly, with the Rusty Airs, the Weird Spawn, all these Orc Arrow Boys, and for Aerocrastic, of course, took a lot of Marauder Javs. Horsemasters and the regular ones ended up being very effective. The two Chaos Knights as well. The Power Sword Chaos Knights are in a really good place right now. Very cost effective. Both of them getting some chevrons there and a lot of kills. 105 for the Weird Spawn also. For myself, yeah, I'm definitely mismicroing the Chariots. I mean, one of them still ended up using all of its ammo and got an XP chevron somehow, with me mismicroing it horribly, so that's okay. These other 2 units, plus the Dread Spears and Dark Riders, I think just if I had managed my supporting elements a little bit better to help at least contest the Chaos Knights, maybe contest some of this mobility game, and also using the shots of the Chariots to go after the Spider, which was also a huge threat. I mean, granted, there were some really bad dice rolls there, and, you know, that's kind of can happen when you're fighting with big single entities like that. Occasionally, RNG does just absolutely destroy your face, but such is life with a game with RNG like this. It's just kind of how it goes sometimes. But yeah, very fun stuff. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that one. I've got a couple more 2v2s actually to get to today. We're going to do a 2v2 multicast, about 3 games to show you, so let's get right to it. For this next battle, Volkmar has actually converted some Dark Elves to the Sigmarite cult, Sigmarite religion, which, if you can believe it, even includes the Slaanesha's Harvesters, who have in fact forsaken their oath to Slaanesh and instead pledged a quest to reclaim their souls from Sigmar. I don't know. Make up what you will. But the idea here is I've brought more or less the same thing as Arrow in the last build, the mobility here. Arrow's got quite a bit of Falcon's brought quite a bit of mobility as well, including some new OP chariots, the Siren of the Red Ruin, Supreme Sorceress, aforementioned Doomfire Warlocks and Slaanesha's Harvesters, some Dark Riders. I've got some Pistoliers here, and they do include these guys right here who are about to start taking some shots from some Deepwood Scouts. These are the Noble Sons Abroad, one of the Empire State regiments. They're basically like Illyrian Pistoliers. For 700 points, you get a bit more armor and melee stats. And yeah, they do look quite fancy as well. Noble Sons Abroad indeed. Look at those colors. Excellent. We've also got one of the other Empire regiments here. The Knights of the Stubborn Bull, or the Stubborn Bulls, rather. These guys are basically like Empire Questing Knights. They have worse stats than Questing Knights, same weapon strength profile, but much worse attack and defense, and 110 armor, which is obviously more than Questing Knights. They are also slower as well, immune to psychology, which is quite nice. The rest is, yeah, regular Empire Knights. We've got a few Knights of the Blazing Sun here. For our foul opponents, 2 factions against which I would say these heavy cavalry builds are very effective, Skaven and Wood Elves. We've got Globes here, Ikit leading the way against the with the Glade Lord rather. Tree Man, we've got Poison Wind Globes, a bunch of units just getting destroyed by a banishment here, a couple Deepwood Scouts, we've got plenty of Skaven Chaff, more Poison Winds, Natty Boobos over here, a couple of Rat Ogres as well, looks like Wild Riders. And yeah, all the stuff going off. A fireball looks like it went maybe at the cannon there, probably. Maybe at the tree men. Don't know that it hit either, but you can see those poison winds shooting in, applying that dot. And anytime you see blobs like this, that's where you want to fire that into, so you can get that dot on multiple units. And just in general, spreading it around and, you know, issuing one volley there, issuing another volley there is going to be the way to use it. You can see here, though, the Empire Knights just pushing through hard over on this side. We are taking some losses to those Deepwood Scouts and others. These Wild Riders also caught me on a countercharge here, which is pretty nice. But Knights of the Blazing Sun obviously going to be getting good Kindle Flame, and how about that cinematic shot there? Oh man, this game is absolutely gorgeous. These Knights of the Blazing Sun finally going to connect on a charge here, and that does also bring them in contact with the another unit of the Globes here, so we've been able to shut down both of the Globes pretty early on. You can see Volkmar pushing through very heavy here with the Sigmarite Harvesters and Empire Knights as well. Ikit will be pretty good against both of them, but we've got Dread Spears coming in for support. The Tree Man's going to hold up this area for quite some time. You can see the Stubborn Bulls getting in here with their great swords. Because of that poor attack, though, they're not really going to make that good a contact. Treemen have pretty good melee defense, so they're basically hitting close to minimum chance to hit. Won't really make any attacks there. If we take a look at the HP, he's just, yeah, they're all just failing on their attack rolls. So we're going to go ahead and pull away there. Not really what I wanted, but meanwhile, the push is just very heavy here with all these mobile units. Chariots pushing through, danger close here, the Blood Rack and the Slaanesha's Harvesters just chopping through. Over on this side, we're able to tie up some of the Skaven units, these Clan Rats here, and then the Rat Ogre is going to be rear charged. And yeah, Empire Knights coming in heavy. The Dragon and the Doom Wheel will be a bit of an issue. We don't have a ton of anti-large AP units, but just by cleaning up all the support here, we should be able to isolate them. Natty Bubo's getting wrecked at this point. See that Arrows of Kurnos in the background. It gets throwing out some zaps, but the Rat Ogres here getting multi-charged by 3 Knights of the Blazing Sun is just way too much. And Volkmar also coming in, trying to cycle charge the Tree Man, honestly, and also rout off these Clan Rat summons, make sure they stay terrified, and we're able to stay in combat here again. Stubborn Bulls fighting the Tree Man, but not doing that great of a job. We're able to get some little bits and bobs of damage, but honestly, if you're going to run these Stubborn Bulls, I do think you need like a Warrior Priest to juice up, or just something to juice up their melee attack, because it's really relatively low. Only 34 charge bonus as well is not that great at the end of the day, but another Banishment in the Woods here gets some very favorable tracking, sort of staying on top of those Warp Grinders and other units. Well, Volkmar has just been an absolute champ in this matchup. Let's see, 63 kills so far. Could be a little more, but still. Empire Knights riding through the lines here. You can see we are just straight up chasing them to the edge of the map, throwing all their units under the bus. And Slaanesh Harvesters, or sorry, regular Doomfire Warlocks, getting some good damage on the Glade Lord, but he does throw down Siren of the Red Ruin. I did notice Medusas have pretty light mass for a monster. They do tend to get thrown around a lot, and they do actually have a fall down animation, which is not the best, but screaming into the wing there, I'm sure that's uncomfortable. Gonna bite his armpit? I don't know, that was weird. But looks like a fireball. Oop, oop, due to the takeoff, probably gonna miss. But the Siren of the Red Ruin, this is one of the things I love about the missile attack of the Medusae, I don't know how you pronounce it. Anyway, because the missile moves so fast, it's basically impossible to dodge. It also does magic damage as well, which against the Glade Lords specifically, obviously, Glade Lords don't have the most armor in the world, but they do have a pretty good amount of missile resistance, or sorry, physical resistance. And that applies to all forest dragons. So anytime you can have magic attacks to circumvent that, it's going to be very favorable. Picket and the Dragon sort of fighting back to back here, trying to take on the Manticore Sorceress. Like she's going to try and probably get back up in the air and run away. But Volkmar just cycle charging the tree at this point. He has a 50 charge bonus and does flaming magic damage, so actually cycle charging this tree can be okay. The regroup Pistoliers as well, pouring in some fire, Dov style. Oh yeah, there we go, lads. Give them some powder. Noble Sons Abroad, of course, with their nice horses, fancy lads. Oh yeah, look at that face. That is the face of, I don't even know, a young nobleman who will someday probably be a knight, if he can survive being in Dov's Pistol Corps, which is quite the tall task, and to get killed pretty often. But anyway, Dragon comes down again, just trying to use Ikit as the anvil here and sort of cycle charge a little bit, hammer and anvil tactics, if you will. But man, Ikit's Doomwheel has to be one of my favorite unit models in the game too. So cool looking. And that little dude on the back just furiously stoking, getting poked in the butt by the Empire Knights. Volkmar gonna play little bumper cars here, get a nice drive-by side charge there. Let the Warrior Priest kind of whack at the bits and bobs there. Siren of the Red Ruin using one of her little area of effect abilities there in the late game. Trying to clean up some of those spears. And the Glade Lord as well, getting that that nice Earth Blood, trying to keep things in check, but you can see the balance of power is pretty far gone for the Jungle Alliance here. I'm not really sure of any lore reason why the Skaven would work with the Wood Elves, but I don't know. I have no idea. Let's just say that the Skaven offered the Wood Elves help and are planning to betray them immediately after the battle, but things didn't particularly go so well. I don't know though, especially Ikit with his whole machine-like theme. I really feel the Wood Elves would never ever work with him, but yeah. Anyway, fun battle nonetheless. Nice to see some of these Empire State troops, or state regiments rather, in action, and honestly I think most of them are cost balanced. Not all of the campaign exclusive units are cost balanced, but the ones for the Empire I would say largely are. There may be a couple that aren't, but we're going to take a look at a few more in the next battle. Yeah, in terms of the breakdown here, you can see all across the board, lots of kills on the Knights, just chevrons to go around on the Empire Knights and Knights of Blazing Sun. Even 76 kills from the Stubborn Bulls too, even though they were fighting single entities much of the time. The Treeman ended up being a great pick, racked up 62 kills, held up at that zone of the battlefield for quite some time. Took a lot of resources to deal with. Obviously, the Dragon did quite well. The Deepwood Scouts initially got some good damage on my Pistoliers, but ended up just kind of getting run over super hard by the mass cavalry there. You can see here Doomfire Warlocks also getting very good kills. Same thing with these Chariots. 59 for the Siren, 62 for the Fire Sorceress. Just a good kill spread all around. I mean, you would expect that against a very chaffy Skaven build as well. 109 though for Ikit Claw. Not too bad considering that we had a relatively small model count army for 2v2s. Yeah, he was definitely an absolute champ there, lasting until the very end. Again, the ranged units ended up being a little bit tough. Just all of these weapon teams and the artillery and everything really couldn't be protected by what they had brought against this massive mobile push. So ended up being a bit too much to handle, but very well played nonetheless. Hopefully you guys enjoyed watching. Got one more to get to, so let's take a look at some of the other Empire State regiments. This time around, we have got some unique Empire units, and there's going to be a bit of a theme here you'll start to notice. First up is the Emperor's Wrath. This is the flame tank, essentially. It has burnt on its projectiles, and it can also go kaboom. As for the rest here, we've got Stir River Patrol that do fire damage, and also have suppression for a bit of extra cost. Warrior Priest, of course, for the extra fire damage. A Luminarch here, which does fire damage. We've got a Huntsman General and a Bright Wizard, of course, for Lore of Fire. A couple of Knights of Blazing Sun, just because. And the Sutsun's Guns, which is Flaming Magic Mortar. I should remind you guys that these units are not going to be available in quick battle, but since this was just a friendly lobby, a hosted lobby, we could actually enable these units by disabling the unit caps. And I know a lot of people were requesting that they separate those features, and hopefully Creative Assembly will in the future, but for the time being, this is what we've got. Loke here is Bleeding the Blessed Dread. We've got a Scream tank to go along with the proper Steam tank, and yeah, that Luminarch already popping off on these Mammoths here. The Monster Alliance here with Lizardmen and Norska. Skink Priest here, a bunch of Kroxigors. We've got Wolfric on foot, a couple of Marauder Chariots, a couple of Mammoths, and just lots of supporting infantry, some Marauder Spears, great weapons, and more. And yeah, Gaston, the Huntsman General, going to be providing some fire damage and support to these Reader Crossbows potentially here. And check out those Sutsun Guns firing in with that nice, unique flaming explosion. The flaming effects as well from the Stir River Patrol. Going to be providing that suppression speed debuff to these Marauders as they advance here. You can see their speed is down to only 22. And of course, with no missile block chance, they are going to be pretty vulnerable targets. Knights of the Blazing Sun, though, there's a pretty strong force of Kroxigors here that I don't necessarily want to tangle with, so I'm going to fall back on that front. And it is going to leave some of these units a little bit exposed here, but the Chariots don't get that great of a charge. They kind of are charging into Blackguard here. Steam Tank also going to get some side bops and provide some nice terror. More literal fire raining in on those Marauders. Don't ask me how you get a flaming crossbow, because I really don't know. But backline being protected just fine right now. Gaston and the Scream Tank with these other units able to kind of more or less contest this flank. And Wolfric's getting deleted, netted and deleted by the Templehof Luminarch there. So yeah, I'm just trying to provide as many consistent Kindle Flames as I can, but a nice orbital bombardment actually didn't hit too many of our troops there. Could have been a lot worse, but it is going to just cut through those Empire Spearmen a little bit there. Meanwhile, the Warrior Priest providing, again, flaming attacks to everything in this nearby vicinity, so anytime we get that Kindle Flame, a lot of units. And there goes Wolfric just getting absolutely sniped. Meanwhile, Sutsun's Guns continuing to rain in fire, and I'm doing a pretty poor job of microing my Knights of Blazing Sun. They are kind of getting zoned out a little bit here by this infantry. There are still some Kroxigors nearby that I need to be careful of, but if you look right here, these Blackguard of Nagron up to 60 melee attack with flaming attacks, plus the Luminarch there just absolutely deletes that Feral Mammoth. And yeah, the extra attack on those Blackguards was definitely very significant there as well. All the fire raining in, but these Chariots are starting to compromise the back line. We don't have a ton of tools for shutting them down because, again, I'm continuing to mismicro my Knights over here in the back line. But once those Kroxigors peel off, I should be able to start countercharging in. But it is going to take me some time to actually do so. We are ahead on the balance of power, though, having downed both Mammoths, and now the Templehof is turning its attention to the Skink Priest. But I make a huge mistake here and leave the Steam Tank out exposed from our lines. You can see it's completely surrounded by Lizardmen and Norscan forces. Nakai is just absolutely giving it a paddling right in the booty there. Ooh, hot. But, yeah, Unfortunately, there's not really any way for me to bail this out, and that is going to equalize the balance of power pretty significantly, losing this tool. And yeah, it's also one of our terror sources, which is not the best, but hopefully we'll be able to make up for it. You can see I'm finally going to start getting some good charges. The fact that these spearmen are very light, have low melee defense, and are unbraced here means that a straight-up face charge from a high shock unit like this Knights of the Blazing Sun here will be able to pretty much deal with them. You can see they just take a ton of damage on that charge and are probably going to be done for. So probably should have done that a little bit earlier, as soon as those Croc scores peeled off, in fact. Maybe we would have been able to swing up and clean up some of these other units and help bail out that steam tank. Not likely, but somehow the Sootzen's gun's still online here and still firing over into that side blob, and those Marauders definitely taking a beating, so hopefully we can just push them right off the side here. The pocket is collapsing pretty aggressively here. The Sorceress Lore of Shadow is going to get tied up by Saurus Spears. The Templehof Luminarch as well, not able to stay clear and stay firing. But, oh man, Gaston as well. Gaston just gets absolutely surrounded and beaten down by all the monsters, so this is pretty much revenge for all the hunting that he's been doing throughout his career. Gets absolutely terrified and will probably get chased off by Marauder Spearmen there, which is not a fun end for him. But Bright Wizard also getting singled out here, and just the lack of support and cohesion. The force is kind of starting to fall apart a little bit here, and you can see pretty quickly the balance of power actually swings back to the Monster Alliance here. We are able to deal with some of the chariots, push off some of these Marauders that were out on this flank here, and the Knights of Blazing Sun still relatively healthy and dangerous in this late game, but there's just so many heavy units left. All of these Croxagors are still on the field. This Mammoth and the Priest still have a bit of health left, that Stegodon there, so I've got some shots on the Luminarch. Potentially we can get some good hits in, but currently, actually, because of the slope, it can't get the best shot, or at least it thinks it can. Actually has a completely clear line of sight, but the Luminarch seems to suffer from some line of sight issues. You can see how, even though it's got a clear shot, I guess maybe not on Nakai, it does kind of need to move forward a little bit here. But the Scream Tank is able to stay online here, able to stay mobile. And another really nice Penumbral Pendulum, going to cut through some of those, Dark Elf troops, actually. In response, that Orbital Bombardment, not really sure where that was cast, if that was a malicious act against the Norskins, or, yeah, pretty much missed everything entirely, which is fine by us. But at this point, our only hope is to try and use the Lokir Fellheart here, leading the Blessed Dread, try and clean up this late game. But a very nice overcast Searing Doom here from that Norskin Metal Sorcerer. Going to do a lot of damage to those Dark Riders. Searing Doom is actually very good against Cavalry because of the damage that it imparts and the fact that Cavalry models can't get staggered. But Templehof Luminarch might be able to get one or two more shots in here, but it is literally up against the white line, and we've just been absolutely chased into the corner here. And not really anywhere else for me to go, so I'm just going to have to start shooting something. And maybe we can zap one of these chariots. Yep, blow up one of the models. Probably complete overkill there. But I don't really want to fire into this blob and risk accidentally hitting Loke here, because that would be really bad. So I'm just going to try and select other targets here to potentially shoot at, like those Croc scores, or I think, looks like I actually canceled that shot. Unfortunately, the Scream Tank gets routed here with about 500 HP left, and we are very close to critical army losses here. In fact, I think even before I get one more shot off, we are going to hit that. Yeah, you can see, not really able to get good line of sight with the monsters all kind of mashed up together like that. And right when he's charging up, we hit army losses. So, GG to Goji and Arrow once again. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this 2v2 triple cast. And yeah, maybe if not for my miss micros there with my Steam Tank and my my Knights, we might have been able to pull back the win and continue, mount up the pressure. Ultimately, it was more of a meme build than anything. I mean, this build is so thin on troops. It would really only work in a 2v2, and just in general, I think we didn't have enough units to test that frontline engagement, but still, it was a very fun battle. I'm surprised, honestly, at how well we did. 146 kills for Loki here. Very good stuff. Had some great breath attacks there, and 96 for the Shadow Sorceress. Some excellent Pendulums. 139 for the Bloodrack Shrine as well. There was quite a bit of Norskin chaff to try and cut through here. But the Mammoths also paid for themselves quite nicely. Oh, it was just a Chieftain. It wasn't even Wolfric. That makes me a little sad, because I spent good amount of resources getting rid of him. Then again, it is worth it to have that Lord killed leadership debuff, in my opinion. And yeah, for Goji, Rock scores ended up, just because of the threat kind of forced me to make a mistake there with my knights, and ultimately Nakai grabbing the steam tank and just, you know, tearing its wheels off and beating it to death. It was a pretty good engagement. Definitely big ups to him, and nice to see Nakai do something in a battle for once. And yeah, the Mammoths did a lot, despite the fact that we sniped them super hard. For myself, the Empire Priest, I mean, the support buffs were nice. The fact that we were able to help the Blackguard kill those monsters, but they still just got stepped on super hard. And yeah, the Stir River Patrol, while that initial, what do you call, suppression was pretty nice. I mean, 700 points for a crossbowman, and they don't have like faster refire rate than regular crossbowmen because they aren't necessarily regiments of renown. They're just like a side grade basically with other abilities and the same base stats. Yeah, it didn't end up being as effective as I wanted. Ultimately, I think if you were to try and make this like an actually good build, the Sootsen's guns I would actually keep. They did a pretty decent job, even though they didn't get that many kills. The Stir River Patrol, I would probably end up cutting these guys and just going with more infantry. The Warrior Priest could just give them fire damage anyway. And the Emperor's Wrath, yeah, although it did getting Chevron, I don't think it actually has fire damage. Let's go and check real quick. Don't believe so, but we have a look here. I don't believe it actually deals fire damage, so if we go ahead, and you can see how they aren't accessible right now, so what you have to do is, again, uncheck the unit caps, and here they are. So, in other words, in quick battles, because unit caps are always enabled, you won't see these guys, but in custom battles, and maybe in some tournaments as well, you might see them. But yeah, 700 points for the Stir River Patrol, not really worth it. Yeah, this thing, it has the burnt effect, but it doesn't actually deal fire damage, so ultimately might not have been worth it to buy the upgrade here. I mean, the leadership effect certainly is nice, but yeah, Steam Tank's a bit of a meme unit against those two factions anyway. Not the best. I mean, it's good in some matchups, don't get me wrong, but Lizardmen and Norska aren't one of them. So ultimately, like, let's put together a semi more competitive fire army here. So I actually usually cut Arrow of Actually. I don't feel like it's that impactful. We are going to keep the Oil Flask and take Glittering Scales also, and of course Hail of Fire. Bright Wizard here. I'll probably roll with, of course we want Kindle Flame, that's the whole point of this, Fireball, and Cascading Fire Cloak, just to get as many cheap procs as possible. And maybe you also throw in Burning Head. Can be a little bit of a trap. Use this on a caster that doesn't have Arcane Conduit, but definitely can roast out, depending on the faction, some light armor, high value units. So I might cut that, I might bring it depending on the matchup. If I did end up bringing it, I'd also probably invest in the Power Stone just to get that extra magic. For the time being, let's leave it off there and just say a min-max build here. We'll go with 3 Knights of the Blazing Sun. Definitely want the Templehof Luminarch. We also need that Warrior Priest with Banner of Eternal Flame, and I am going to hang on to Soulfire as well, and Shield of Faith, which is going to make him a little bit expensive, but he can just kind of stand in the front and help support that infantry line. As for the rest, yeah, we definitely want the Sootsen's guns. That magic fire damage going to be pretty sweet. Are going to need to protect it relatively well, though, so I would actually opt for a couple of mobile units. You know what, maybe we'll actually only take 2 Knights of the Blazing Sun. Let's grab some Pistoliers, of course. And also just going to get some Spearmen for the front line. Maybe Sigmar's Sons. Let's see, what other regiments of renown can we get here? Potentially. I don't believe any of these other guys actually have innate fire damage. The Stir River Patrol, it would be nice to get 1 or 2 just for the memes of it. But they're really, I mean, they're really not worth the 700 points, I don't think. I guess we could take... don't have quite enough for a Sunmaker. We could just take like a second mortar or something. Let's see. Grenades don't do fire damage, do they? No, they do not. We do have enough for a wagon. I don't know if this build is meme enough. Maybe we take a wagon just to extra meme it out there. But we don't have a source of terror, which is a bit of an issue in my eyes. So what can we bring that causes terror for cheap-ish? I mean, not the Royal Altar Purifieds are going to be the cheapest thing, but a Steam Tank isn't that much more expensive. So, big think. We come in here and maybe cut a couple shields, and that gets us to 1,000. We could maybe... We don't want to cut the Sigmar's Sons. Tempelhof as well, having those nets is pretty essential. A regular Luminarch as well, with the fire rate differential and everything. It's much, much better value to take the Tempelhof, in my opinion. Pay the extra points for it, but yeah, it's an interesting quandary we got here to try and pick units apart here. And this is kind of the process that I go through when I'm doing builds and such. Yeah, I don't know. Not really sure on a source of terror here. Why that steam tank is almost a little bit essential, right? So, let's see. To get a normal steam tank, we would need to get 1100 points. I would really hate to only bring one Knight of the Blazing Sun. So maybe what we could do here is cut some of the spears down. Have them no shields. And we don't quite have enough. We could take a Reichsguard, but we don't quite have enough. I'd have to come in here and maybe fine-tune this a little bit more. I'm not exactly sure. Maybe we cut... I don't know, maybe we do cut Soulfire. That'll give us enough to take the Knights with Fire. I don't know. Maybe something like this. I'll kind of play around with more Empire Fire-themed builds with friends, taking some of these Empire regiments. The Sootzen's guns really is the main one I'm interested in. The damage boost actually on mortars is pretty nice because they don't have the most missile damage in the world baseline. The fact that it also does magic is pretty neat as well, especially against factions like Dark Elves or, you know, Skaven or Wood Elves, Bretonnia, anyone that has good physical resistance. Although, I don't know, Bretonnia physical resistance is on Knights, and you probably don't want to be shooting these at them. But nonetheless, very fun stuff. Hopefully you guys enjoyed watching this one. If you do like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification button. So every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.